Hello everyone, welcome back to Desert Fresh Aquatics. My name is Nate, and today is finally the big day where we get to plant this 20-gallon long aquarium that we set up in my last video. I just got my plants delivered here from Flip Aquatics, and this is the biggest box that they've ever sent me, probably because it's the largest plant order that I've ever placed with them. And besides just plants that are in this box, I also decided that I wanted to try a live food culture. So I also ordered a Daphnia starter culture, which I'm planning on culturing in this little bin underneath the tank here. And I've never cultured Daphnia before, so we're gonna see how it goes. I'm really excited to hopefully have a live food source to pull from to feed all of my fish. And since my last video, I made a couple small tweaks to the tank. I added some more aqua soil, sloping it up more aggressively towards the back, which also really helped increase the sense of depth in the tank. And then I also took some of my coarse gravel and placed it in the gaps in between the rocks and the glass in a couple of areas in order to prevent the aqua soil from migrating down on top of my sand layer. That way I don't have to spend time putting down that substrate layer after I've planted, because after you plant, you really have to make sure that you keep those plants wet. And once we're done with that, we're gonna go ahead and open up the box. I'll start by getting my Daphnia culture in its new container, and then I'll have to spend some time prepping up all of our plants, getting them ready to go into the tank, and then we'll go ahead and put the plants into the tank and fill it up. But I'm ready when you are, so let's get this show on the road. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this box opened up. All right, guys, so we've got our Daphnia culture here. I don't know if you can see them swimming around in there. So that'll be our starter culture. I also got some of the shrimple food for Daphnia from Flip Aquatics. So I got the pack. They sold this as a bundle. So hopefully this should give us a good, healthy Daphnia culture that we can use to feed our fish going forward. But then we have all of these plants that we have to prep and get ready to go into the tank. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my spray bottle and a tray, and we're gonna go ahead and speed this up and get all of these plants processed so that we can go ahead and plant them. And I'm just using a baking sheet, a clean baking sheet with plastic wrap over it just to make sure that there's no cross-contamination. But I'll speed this up for you guys so you don't have to sit here and take all this time to process these plants with me.
A few moments later.
All right, guys. Well, I'm getting really sick and tired of losing all of my time-lapse footage. I did try to record me prepping all of these plants with a time-lapse video, but unfortunately it didn't save for some reason. So I'll go over these plants really quickly here so we can get to the next step. So I've got Crypt Spiralis here, this big tangly mess. Some of you guys might remember I do have one of these in my 5-gallon tank that took in absolutely terrific. And I think that 5 of these in the 20-gallon tank is gonna be excellent. And then over here, we've got a couple Anubias Hastofolia. So this is gonna be probably our most prominent plant that we have in this tank. I've got 2 of those. And then here I've got some Anubias Coffeefolia. So that'll help fill in some of the gaps on the rocks and the driftwood, as well as just a couple little Anubias Nana Petite here. And then I have some more Crypt Lutea. So this is also growing really, really well in my 5-gallon tank. So we're gonna be putting a bunch of those into the 20. And then here, a plant that I've never tried before, This is Brazilian pennywort. Now, the Brazilian pennywort grows quite tall. It's a pretty fast growing stem plant, but I really love the look of like those little lily pad leaves. I think that that's gonna add a lot of really good height in the back of our aquarium. I'm also going to be adding some of the water sprite that I have in my 5-gallon tank. Since it's growing so fast, it'll be really easy for me to propagate that water sprite into the 20-gallon tank as well. And here is this piece of water sprite that I've been floating for a little while. So this is gonna be ready to trim and plant right into the 20-gallon tank. Okay guys, first things first, I've got a couple big bags of this Stony River pebbles here. So we're gonna use this around some of the base of the rocks to give texture, give depth, but also just to make sure that we don't have aqua soil coming up on top of our sand. So let's go ahead and put this in here in some of those areas and see how it looks. Okay guys, well that didn't take me very long to figure out that that was a bad idea. We're gonna go ahead and just plant directly into the substrate here with the aqua soil, and then from there we'll do all the substrate. All right guys, so I'm thinking that we're gonna start low and then work our way up. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with that water sprite that I pulled out of my 5-gallon tank. We'll get that put into here, and then I've got 2 of these little trimmings. We'll get that put in the tank, and then from there we'll go ahead and kind of work our way up, go with substrate plants, and then to Anubias, and then we should be good. All right, and then we'll go in with our Brazilian pennywort here. And I'm thinking we'll put this in the back left-hand corner. And then we'll go ahead and run across the back with our Crypt Spiralis here. All right, guys, well, that's all of our substrate dwellers. And now it's time to go ahead and move on to the Anubias and getting that all attached to the driftwood here. But first, let's go ahead and give everything a good spray down to make sure that it doesn't dry out. All right, and then to start us off with our Anubias, we're gonna go ahead and get going with Anubias Hastofolia. And of course I lied to you guys again. I totally forgot about our Crypt Lutea, or Lutea. So we're gonna go ahead and plant these in here and then keep going on with our Anubias. All right, guys, so that is all of our Crypt Lutea in here. And, oh man, I got a lot of that. So it's pretty dense right up in here. I got some over here, some up in here, one around the side here. So that should grow in really nicely. I even have a couple little bits like this one right down over here. That one was tiny little piece that broke off, but that should blossom into a whole new plant. All right, but let's go ahead and get our Anubias Coffeefolia in there. All right, and then last but not least, we have our Anubias Nana Petite, just to fill in the tiny last gaps that are left. All right, guys, so that's the planting done. I'm loving how it's looking so far, but I know that it's only gonna get better as we go and as the plants grow in more. So now the next step, I think, is going to be the hardest step, which is going to be getting the substrate in here in a way that I like, that hopefully hides all of that aqua soil. So we're gonna try that and see what we can come up with. All right, guys, I think that'll be fine for the sand for now. Boy, that's really overwhelming, the exposure on the camera. Now, another hard part is we're just gonna add some of this more fine gravel. We're gonna try to cover all of the aqua soil. We're gonna see if we can make that happen with this little bag. I'm not holding my breath. Okay guys, so this hardscape and plants and the substrate, this looks really, really good. Like this looks a lot better than I was expecting it to. And when it exceeds your expectations, you know, I guess that's always a good sign. So next step, we just have to add our Java moss and then it's ready to fill up. All right, so we got our little cup of Java moss here. We've actually got 2 of these, so we're just gonna use this to fill in some of the empty spaces or some of the areas where it could just use a little something extra. All right, guys, well, that looks just terrific. Now all we have to do is fill up the tank. All right, and as for our Daphnia culture, I've got this bin set up. It's been running for a little bit now. There we go. So I just keep the lid partially on there. I have an air pump in my cabinet here that is running 2 air lines with air stones into this bin. That should be more than adequate for these little Daphnia. All right, now here's the hard part, putting the Daphnia in. Are you ready? The hardest part about this is just making sure that you get as many of them as you can. Now, they're kind of hard to see because they're so small, but you should be able to see them flapping around in there. Now, when the water is really clear like this, that's actually not ideal for them. They need to have a bit of cloudiness in the water because they are filter feeders. So they will filter the water and eat what's floating around in the water column. So I need to go ahead and put some food in here to make sure that these guys don't starve. And then as far as feeding the Daphnia goes, all you need is just a little bit of water and mix in a little bit of that Daphnia food, and then straight into the little tank. Give it a quick mix, suspend as much of that into the water as possible. And I think I'm gonna put a little bit more in because that water is still looking really clear. All right, guys, well, I think that'll just about wrap up this tank build for now. We're gonna have to let the tank sit and cycle for a couple of weeks to make sure that it's ready for fish. That'll also give the plants an opportunity to get established and get rooted in there. I'll be back in a few weeks to update you guys on the progress of this tank and my Daphnia culture. I will also be adding fish into this tank in my next video. As we discussed, I'm gonna be putting my pufferfish into this tank once it's cycled, along with some more pufferfish friends, and I might be putting some more mystery fish into the tank as well. In my next video, I promise you, if you think the tank looks good now, it's going to look even better then. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It definitely helps out my channel. and I'll see all of you in the next video. This has been Desert Fresh Aquatics, and thank you for watching.